After 50, the brain does not break down because of time. It breaks down because of pressure. Most people believe aging slowly wears the brain out. But neuroscience shows something far more uncomfortable. The brain after 50 is not fragile. It is sensitive. Sensitive to stress signals, sensitive to emotional load, sensitive to how safe or unsafe life feels. And that is why stress becomes more dangerous than aging itself. If you are over 50, this may be one of the most important brain truths you will ever hear. Welcome to Smart Brain Senior. Subscribe now if you want to protect your brain from the damage most people never see coming. Stress after 50 does not just make you tired. It changes how your brain operates at a structural level. It reshapes memory. It alters emotional control. It weakens focus. It narrows perception. And over time, it accelerates cognitive decline faster than years passing on a calendar. This is not motivational talk. This is biology. To understand why stress becomes so destructive after midlife, we need to understand how the brain itself changes after 50. The younger brain is built for speed. The older brain is built for meaning. After 50, the brain begins prioritizing relevance over volume. It no longer wants constant stimulation. It no longer tolerates chaos well. It becomes selective. This shift is not weakness. It is intelligence. But here is the problem. Stress does not respect this shift. Stress floods the brain with signals that say danger, urgency, uncertainty, loss of control. These signals activate ancient survival circuits. And after 50, those circuits stay active longer than they should. The hormone cortisol becomes the central player. Cortisol is not bad by design. In small doses, it sharpens focus and mobilizes energy. But chronic cortisol exposure damages the brain, and the older brain absorbs cortisol more deeply. The hippocampus, which controls memory and learning, shrinks under prolonged stress. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and emotional regulation, becomes less efficient. The amygdala, the fear detection center, becomes hyperreactive. This creates a dangerous imbalance. Memory weakens, emotions intensify, focus fragments, sleep deteriorates, and the person feels like the brain is aging rapidly. But the truth is more precise. The brain is not aging. It is being chemically pressured into survival mode. After 50, the brain expects stability. When it receives constant stress instead, it interprets life as unsafe. And an unsafe brain does not invest in long-term thinking. It sacrifices clarity for vigilance. This is why many adults after 50% experience brain fog, irritability, emotional sensitivity, mental fatigue, difficulty concentrating, a sense of internal pressure even during rest. These are not signs of decline, they are signs of a brain under chronic threat. Stress after 50 is more damaging because the brain's priorities have changed. Earlier in life, the brain tolerated stress because growth demanded it. After midlife, the brain values regulation over expansion. When stress continues unchecked, it collides with this new operating system. This collision causes internal friction. The brain begins reallocating energy away from creativity, learning, and emotional nuance toward defense and alertness. Over time, this rewiring becomes habitual. The person does not just feel stressed. The brain becomes stress-shaped. This is why two people of the same age can age mentally at completely different speeds. One lives in constant urgency. The other lives in calm authority. One loses clarity. The other gains wisdom. The difference is not genetics. It is nervous system environment. Stress after 50 accelerates brain aging because it blocks the very systems that protect the brain. Neuroplasticity does not disappear after 50, but it requires safety. The brain only rewires positively when it feels stable. Chronic stress sends the opposite message. It tells the brain, do not grow, do not explore, just survive. This is the silent danger. Not loud panic, but constant low-level pressure, deadlines, unresolved conflicts, financial worry, loneliness, unprocessed grief, noise, mental clutter. Each one adds weight, and the mature brain feels weight more than speed. This is why people often say, I feel older than I am. What they are really feeling is neural fatigue. The brain is exhausted from holding tension it was never meant to carry for decades. Smart Brain Senior exists to clarify this truth. Your brain after 50 is not broken, it is overloaded. In the next part, we will continue directly from this understanding, exploring how emotional stress quietly reshapes identity, memory, and decision-making after midlife, and why learning to reduce stress after 50% is not self-care, it is brain preservation. Stay with Smart Brain Senior, because understanding your brain is the first step to protecting it. When stress becomes constant after 50, it does something far more dangerous than making you anxious. It begins to change who you are at a neurological level. Most people think stress is something you feel, but in reality, stress is something the brain records. Every unresolved pressure leaves a biological trace, and after 50, the brain records stress differently than it did earlier in life. In youth, stress is temporary. The brain expects recovery. After midlife, the brain expects resolution. When resolution does not arrive, the brain adapts instead. This adaptation is where damage begins. The mature brain is deeply tied to identity, values, meaning, purpose, emotional coherence. Stress interferes with all of these. One of the first systems affected is emotional regulation. After 50, emotions are no longer raw reactions, they are integrated experiences. The brain blends memory, emotion, and meaning into a single signal. Stress disrupts this integration. Instead of calm, emotional clarity, the brain experiences emotional compression. Feelings become heavy, more persistent, harder to release. This is why adults under chronic stress after 50 often say, "I don't feel like myself anymore." That feeling is not imagined. Stress weakens the communication between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. The prefrontal cortex is the voice of perspective. The limbic system is the voice of emotion. When stress dominates, emotion speaks louder than reason, not because reason is gone, but because emotion is chemically amplified. Cortisol increases emotional salience. Small problems feel larger, minor conflicts feel personal, uncertainty feels threatening. This has nothing to do with weakness. It is chemistry meeting maturity. The older brain has deeper emotional memory. Stress activates those memories more easily. This is why past experiences resurface under pressure. Old regrets, old fears, old losses. Stress does not create them. It removes the filter that normally keeps them quiet. Another silent casualty of stress after 50 is decision-making. Under chronic stress, the brain shifts from long-term evaluation to short-term relief. This leads to decisions that feel safe in the moment, but costly over time. Avoidance, withdrawal, overworking, emotional shutdown. These are not personality flaws, they are stress adaptations. The brain is trying to reduce load. Unfortunately, these adaptations reduce cognitive flexibility, the ability to see options, to adapt, to remain mentally agile. This is one reason stress accelerates brain aging faster than time. Aging alone does not reduce flexibility. Stress does. The hippocampus continues to suffer under chronic cortisol exposure. But the damage is not immediate memory loss, it is context loss. The ability to place experiences in perspective weakens. Memories become less organized, more emotionally charged, harder to retrieve calmly. People often describe this as, "My memory works, but it feels messy." That is an accurate description. Stress fragments memory encoding. Sleep begins to suffer as well. Stress keeps the brain partially alert even during rest. Deep sleep shortens. REM sleep becomes unstable. Without proper sleep, the brain cannot recalibrate emotional circuits. This creates a loop. Stress disrupts sleep. Poor sleep increases stress sensitivity. Over time, this loop reshapes the nervous system. The brain becomes biased toward threat detection. Neutral situations feel tense. Quiet moments feel uncomfortable. Stillness feels unsafe. This is not aging. This is a brain trained by pressure. What makes stress after 50 uniquely dangerous is that the brain is no longer focused on expansion. It is focused on consolidation. The brain is organizing a lifetime of experience, refining wisdom, strengthening meaning. Stress interrupts this process. Instead of consolidating insight, the brain consolidates vigilance. This is why some people become sharper with age, while others become rigid. It is not intelligence, it is nervous system condition. Smart Brain Senior emphasizes this distinction. You do not lose mental strength after 50. You either preserve it or exhaust it. Stress is the fastest exhauster. Yet here is the crucial truth. The brain after 50 is also exceptionally responsive to stress reduction. Even small reductions in chronic stress produce measurable improvements in memory, emotional stability, attention, and overall cognitive clarity, because the mature brain knows what safety feels like. It remembers calm. This memory can be reactivated. The next step is understanding why stress feels harder to escape after 50, and how identity, responsibility, and emotional investment keep the brain locked in pressure loops. This understanding changes everything. Stay with Smart Brain Senior, because clarity is not lost with age. It is blocked by stress. There is a reason stress feels harder to escape after 50. It is not because the mind is weaker. It is because the mind is more invested. By midlife, the brain is no longer experimenting with identity. It is protecting it. Responsibilities are heavier. Relationships are deeper. Losses are real. Time feels finite. The brain knows this, and because it knows this, stress carries more emotional weight. After 50, stress is rarely just about the present moment. It is layered. A worry today connects to 10 years of effort. A conflict now touches decades of emotional history. A fear about the future carries the memory of past disappointments. This layering is what makes stress after 50 uniquely damaging. The brain is not reacting to one problem. It is reacting to an entire emotional archive. Neuroscience calls this emotional load accumulation. The more experiences a brain has processed, the more material stress can activate. This does not mean experience is bad. It means experience must be protected. When stress becomes chronic, the brain repeatedly reactivates emotional memory networks. These networks were meant to guide wisdom, not to be triggered constantly. Overactivation leads to emotional fatigue. This is why some adults after 50 feel mentally tired even without doing much. The brain is working internally, replaying, evaluating, preparing, guarding. Stress keeps the brain from resting psychologically, and psychological rest is just as important as sleep. Another critical change after 50 is attention narrowing. Under stress, the brain reduces its field of awareness. This is a survival response. But when it becomes habitual, life begins to feel smaller, creativity declines, curiosity fades, perspective tightens. People often describe this as, "I feel stuck in my head." That feeling is accurate. Stress pulls attention inward, toward control, toward anticipation, toward worry. The prefrontal cortex becomes overloaded. When overloaded, it cannot perform its most important role. Integration. Integration is what allows the brain to hold complexity calmly. Without it, thoughts become repetitive, emotions loop, problems feel unsolvable. This is not cognitive decline, it is cognitive congestion. Stress fills mental space that was meant for insight. After 50%, insight is the brain's greatest asset. Stress blocks access to it. Another hidden effect of stress is on self-trust. The mature brain relies heavily on intuition, pattern recognition, subtle signals. Chronic stress disrupts these signals. The brain becomes noisy. When the internal environment is noisy, confidence weakens. People begin to second-guess decisions they once made easily, not because judgment is worse, but because clarity is drowned out. This creates hesitation, which creates more stress, a quiet but destructive cycle. Stress also alters how the brain processes social interaction. After 50, social connection becomes emotionally precise. The brain values authenticity over volume. Stress interfere. With this, it makes interactions feel draining. It reduces patience. It increases misinterpretation. People withdraw, not because they want isolation, but because the brain is overloaded. Unfortunately, isolation increases stress sensitivity. This is how stress quietly reshapes lifestyle, not through dramatic breakdowns, but through subtle avoidance, less engagement, less expression, less emotional openness. The brain becomes protective. Protection without recovery becomes rigidity. This is one of the clearest markers of stress-driven brain aging. rigidity, not forgetfulness. A rigid brain struggles to adapt, even though it holds enormous knowledge. Smart Brain Senior highlights this because it changes how we approach brain health. You do not fight stress after 50 by forcing positivity. You reduce it by restoring internal safety. The brain must feel that it is allowed to slow down, that it does not need to be alert all the time. That meaning does not require urgency. When safety returns, the brain releases its grip. Emotional regulation improves. Focus widens. Memory organizes. Sleep deepens. This is not theoretical. It is observable. Brain scans show reduced amygdala activation, improved prefrontal control, enhanced hippocampal function, even after years of stress. The mature brain is not fragile. It is responsive. But responsiveness cuts both ways. Stress shapes it faster than time. Calm restores it faster than effort. Understanding this shifts everything. Stress management after 50 is not about comfort. It is about neural preservation. In the next continuation, we move deeper into how stress accelerates physical brain changes and why reducing stress is one of the most powerful anti-aging strategies available. Stay with Smart Brain Senior, because your brain is still listening and it still knows how to heal. Beyond emotions and identity, stress after 50 begins to change the physical behavior of the brain itself. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually, persistently. This is where stress becomes more dangerous than aging. Aging is slow. Stress is cumulative. The mature brain is constantly adjusting blood flow, neural communication, energy allocation. Under chronic stress, these systems fall out of balance. One of the first changes occurs in neurovascular function. Stress causes blood vessels in the brain to constrict more often than they should. Reduced blood flow means reduced oxygen, reduced glucose, reduced metabolic support. Neurons become less efficient. This does not kill brain cells immediately. It weakens them. Weakened neurons communicate less clearly, signals slow, connections lose precision. This is why focus after 50 under stress feels heavy, not absent, but effortful. The brain is working harder to achieve the same clarity. Stress also interferes with neurotransmitter balance. Dopamine, which supports motivation and learning, serotonin, which supports mood stability, acetylcholine, which supports memory encoding, all become dysregulated under chronic stress. The result is not depression in the classic sense. It is flattening. Motivation dulls, pleasure narrows, mental energy fluctuates unpredictably. People often describe this as, "I don't feel depressed, I just don't feel fully alive mentally." That feeling is a neurological signal. Stress has reduced the brain's ability to reward calm focus. Another critical system affected is neuroplasticity. Contrary to popular belief, neuroplasticity does not disappear after 50, but it becomes more selective. The brain prioritizes meaningful adaptation, not constant rewiring. Stress disrupts this selectivity. Under chronic stress, the brain reinforces defensive patterns instead of adaptive ones. It strengthens vigilance, not flexibility. This is why habits become harder to change under stress. Even when motivation is present, the brain is conserving energy, avoiding risk, staying familiar. This is not stubbornness, it is stress-driven neural economy. Inflammation also plays a major role. Chronic stress increases systemic inflammation, including neuroinflammation. Inflamed neural tissue communicates less efficiently, recovers more slowly, and becomes more sensitive to damage. This is where stress begins to resemble accelerated aging, not because time has passed, but because repair has slowed. The brain after 50 relies heavily on nightly repair, sleep-driven cleanup, synaptic recalibration, hormonal balance. Stress disrupts sleep architecture, deep sleep shortens, REM sleep fragments, nighttime cortisol remains elevated. Without proper sleep, the brain cannot repair stress-induced damage. This creates another reinforcing loop. Stress impairs sleep. Poor sleep increases inflammation. Inflammation increases stress sensitivity over months and years. This loop shapes the brain. But here is the critical distinction. Aging alone does not create this loop. Stress does. People who age with low chronic stress show preserved brain volume, stronger connectivity, and better cognitive performance, even into their 70s and beyond. This is why stress reduction after 50 is not optional. It is foundational. The brain is not asking for stimulation, it is asking for relief. Relief allows systems to reset. Blood flow normalizes. Neurotransmitters stabilize, inflammation decreases, plasticity reopens. This is why calm after 50 feels powerful. It is not emptiness, it is efficiency. The brain finally has space to operate as designed. Smart Brain Senior emphasizes this because it reframes aging. Mental decline is not inevitable, but stress-driven decline is common. The difference is awareness. When you understand that stress is a biological force, not just an emotional one, you stop blaming yourself and start protecting your brain. The next continuation brings everything together, showing how intentional calm, not effort, becomes the most effective strategy for preserving brain power after 50. Stay with Smart Brain Senior, because your brain does not need to be pushed. It needs to be protected. The most important shift after 50 is this. The brain no longer responds best to pressure. It responds best to regulation. You do not strengthen the mature brain by forcing it. You strengthen it by stabilizing it. This is where many people misunderstand brain health. They chase stimulation, information, motivation. But the aging brain is not weak. It is sensitive. And sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a signal that the brain needs fewer threats and more safety. When the brain senses safety, repair systems activate, blood flow becomes efficient, neurotransmitters rebalance, inflammation reduces, neuroplasticity resumes. This is why calm environments improve cognition after 50%, even without effort. One of the most powerful brain protectors is predictability. Regular sleep timing, regular meals, regular exposure to daylight. These patterns tell the brain, you are not under threat. When threat perception lowers, stress chemistry falls naturally. Another key factor is controlled stimulation, short-focused mental challenges, not constant multitasking, depth, not speed. The brain after 50 thrives on meaning, not overload. This is why reading slowly, learning intentionally, and reflecting deeply strengthen cognition more than rapid content consumption. Movement also plays a role, not intense exhaustion, but rhythmic motion, walking, light resistance, gentle stretching. These movements increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which supports neuron survival and communication. Equally important is emotional regulation. Suppressing emotion increases stress. Processing emotion reduces it. Talking, writing, pausing. These actions lower limbic reactivity, allowing the prefrontal cortex to regain control. This restores clarity, decision-making, and emotional balance. Social connection matters, but quality matters more than quantity. One meaningful conversation reduces stress chemistry more than 10 shallow interactions. The brain evolved for trust, not noise. Perhaps the most underrated protector is silence. Quiet moments allow the default mode network to recalibrate. This is where memory integrates, identity stabilizes, and mental fatigue resolves. Silence is not empty, it is restorative. Here is the truth many never hear. After 50, your brain does not need to compete, it needs to cooperate. When you stop fighting stress and start designing calm, the brain responds immediately. Clarity improves, memory steadies, emotional strength returns. Not because you became younger, but because your brain finally had space to function fully. Stress ages the brain faster than time, but calm slows aging more effectively than any supplement. This is the philosophy behind Smart Brain Senior. Not fear, not hype, just neuroscience, applied with wisdom. If this message resonated, stay connected, subscribe to Smart Brain Senior, and continue protecting your brain for clarity, for strength, for the years ahead. Why? Our brain is not declining. It is waiting for relief. Your brain does not fail with age. It responds to the environment you give it. Reduce stress, and the brain repairs. Create safety, and clarity returns. This channel exists for one reason: To protect the brain after 50, with science, not fear. If this helped you, subscribe to Smart Brain Senior. Your best years of mental strength are not behind you. They are being protected. Right now,